Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Today we are going to be reacting on Laura Bohanian's Shakespeare in the Bush. I'm Madison Davidson, and if you haven't read it, here's a quick little breakdown. Bohanian, an American anthropologist, goes to live with the Tiv people of West Africa. She's convinced that great literature is completely universal, and she's referring to Shakespeare's Hamlet. She believes that human nature is the same everywhere. So obviously the Tiv people will understand the plot of Hamlet the exact same way that we do. So spoiler alert, she was wrong. And the core idea of the article is that what we think as universal human truths are actually deeply filtered through our perspective cultural lens. So how does this show the massive impact of worldview on how we interpret cultural meanings? The worldview is essentially the invisible set of assumptions and beliefs we use to make sense of reality. Bohanian sits down with the Tivi elders to tell them the story of Hamlet, thinking it's going to be straightforward about tragedy and murder, the ghosts, and the madness, right? But from the opening scene, the Tiv people completely reinterpret the entire plot based on their own worldview. So for example, when Bohanian mentions Hamlet's father's ghost, the Tiv people stop her because in their worldview, ghosts don't exist. Dead people cannot walk or even talk. So when Bohanian, refers to a ghost, she must be talking about something that was sent by a witch, like a omen, or even a zombie-like creature. When she explains that Hamlet's mother married his uncle just 2 months after the king had died, Bohanian expects the Tivi's people to be shocked by the incest and the betrayal. But instead, the Tivi elders, they cheer. Because in their society, a younger brother is expected to marry his deceased brother's widow to carry on the lineage and to care for her. They thought that Claudius was being an excellent and responsible brother. So two completely different interpretations of the exact same plot is all driven by what each other culture considers rational and good. So let's talk about Bohanian's own anthrocentric. I am not sure how to pronounce that. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Anthrocentric bias. So anthropocentrism is when we judge another culture solely by the values and standards of our own, assuming ours is the default or correct way. Bohanian's bias shines through her initial certainty that Hamlet has only one true universal meaning, the Western one. Throughout the story, whenever the Tiv people question the plot point, her immediate reaction is to think that they don't understand the story and that she needs to explain it better. But her worldview is shaped her perception to see that the Tiv as unknowledgeable or even confused audience members, rather than recognizing they were highly intelligent individuals operating on a completely coherent alternative logic system. She entered the interaction assuming that she was going to be the teacher and that they were going to be the students of human nature. So what I really like about this article is how brutally it challenges the notion that our own cultural values are normal or best. It focuses on the flip of the script. So to think about a unique norm in our own contemporary culture, let's think about when you take out a student debt loan, or even our hustle culture, working 80 hours a week, surviving on energy drinks and caffeine, and sacrificing sleep for job. To us, it's framed as ambition or a necessary sacrifice. But how an outsider would view this, someone from a communal relationship-centered culture, it might look as the hustle culture and think we are literally suffering from like a sickness, like spiritual sickness. And they might view an individual who cuts off family time to work extra hours not as successful, but as tragic, isolated person who completely maybe has lost their mind. Our normal can be somebody else's bizarre. And so I asked a couple friends about like experiences maybe that they've had retaining to cultural misunderstandings. And one of my friends, actually, she had told me that she was working on this group project a while ago, and she had an exchange student in her class that was from Japan. And so they were having like meetings, and she would pitch ideas, and the exchange student would like gently nod and smile and say, "That's very interesting." And so she took that as the green light to keep pushing. And so she kept bringing up ideas, and then later she found out that the exchange student was actually strongly disagreeing with the direction that the project was going, but felt that it was deeply inappropriate to openly contradict her in front of the group. So her worldview, my friend's worldview, educated directness with honesty by nodding with agreement. Her worldview, prioritizing harmony and saving face and indirect communication as the exchange student. So she misread her politeness as compliance, just like Bohanian misread misread the TV's corrections as ignorance. My fault. In both cases, a failure to look past the surface level led to a completely misinterpretation of behavior. So how would one fix this? What is the ultimate best practice for communication across cultures? The golden rule here is to shift from interactive judgment to active curiosity. When someone from another culture reacts in a way that seems confusing, wrong, or offensive, our instinct is to judge. Instead, I feel like everyone just needs to take a pause and maybe ask, like, what worldview makes this behavior completely logical to them? We see a great example of this at the end of the article, right? Bohanian stops fiercely defending the Western interpretation of Hamlet and just lets the elders explain how the story actually ends according to the Tiv customs. By letting go of her need to be right, she gains a profound understanding of the Tin kinship law and the social structure. To communicate effectively, we must stop defending our own correctness and start mapping others' personal logic. So to wrap it all up, the single most significant lesson that you can get, or that I had gotten from Shakespeare in the Bush, is that perception is never neutral. We do not see the world as it is, but we see it as the world as we are. Intercultural communication isn't just about learning a few foreign words or avoiding taboo gestures. It requires the humility to realize that our version of common sense is just one out of 1,000 ways of understanding human beings. The Tiv elders actually sent Bohanian off by telling her like to come back so they can teach her more wisdom about their culture. And honestly, they were right. So what do you think? Have you had a moment where your normal was completely questioned by somebody else? Anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.